There is a strange experience that almost everyone has lived through at some point. You meet someone, the connection passes, life moves forward, and yet that person refuses to leave your mind. Days pass, sometimes months, sometimes even years, and suddenly they appear in your thoughts again. Not because you searched for the memory, but because something inside you seems to return to them without permission. Many people interpret this as unfinished love, nostalgia, or simple emotional attachment. But the ideas explored by Carl Jung suggest that when someone remains present in our thoughts for a long time, the reason is often deeper than we imagine. Jung believed that the human mind does not hold on to people randomly. The unconscious mind stores experiences that carry psychological meaning. When someone activates something significant within our inner world, their image becomes more than just a memory. They become a symbol inside the psyche, connected to emotions, desires, fears, or parts of ourselves that are still being understood. This is why forgetting certain people can feel unexpectedly difficult. Even if the relationship has ended, the psychological impact of the connection continues unfolding beneath the surface. The mind returns to the memory again and again, not necessarily because of the person themselves, but because of what the experience awakened inside you. Many people believe they cannot forget someone because of love alone. But Jung would suggest that the mind often revisits these connections because they represent unfinished psychological material. Something about that encounter is still trying to reveal meaning within your inner world. And once you begin understanding this, another curious possibility appears. Sometimes the reason you cannot forget someone is not about the past at all, but about something hidden within yourself that the relationship awakened. Sometimes the reason you cannot forget someone has very little to do with the person themselves. What remains alive in your mind may actually be the part of yourself that the relationship awakened. According to Carl Jung, certain people act like mirrors that reflect hidden aspects of our psyche. Jung believed that human beings carry many unconscious traits, desires, and emotional patterns that are not fully recognized in everyday life. These elements live quietly beneath the surface of the conscious mind. But when we encounter someone who resonates with these hidden parts of ourselves, the connection can feel unusually powerful. The person may embody qualities that you admire but have not yet developed within yourself. They might represent courage, emotional openness, creativity, independence, or even vulnerability. Because these qualities are already present within your unconscious, meeting someone who expresses them can create a deep psychological resonance. In Jungian psychology, this dynamic is often connected to what he described as projection. When we meet someone who carries qualities that exist in our unconscious, we may project those inner aspects onto them. The person becomes a symbolic figure representing something meaningful within our own psychological development. This is why forgetting them can feel so difficult. The mind continues returning to the image of the person because they are not only a memory of someone you met, they represent a part of yourself that is still seeking expression or understanding. Over time, many people discover that what they thought was longing for another person was actually a deeper longing to understand themselves. The connection becomes a doorway into personal growth rather than simply a romantic attachment. But sometimes the mind continues holding on to someone for a different reason entirely. In certain cases, the difficulty in forgetting them comes from something unfinished within the relationship itself, something the psyche still wants to resolve. Sometimes the reason you cannot forget someone has nothing to do with destiny, projection, or even love itself. Instead, the connection simply ended before the mind could fully understand it. Something important in the emotional story was never completed, and because of that, the psyche continues returning to the memory as if it were trying to finish a sentence that was suddenly interrupted. According to Carl Jung, the human mind has a natural tendency to seek psychological closure. When experiences end abruptly or without clear meaning, the unconscious mind continues working in the background, attempting to integrate the emotional impact of what happened. The memory remains active not because the person is still present in your life, but because the experience has not yet been fully processed within your inner world. This is why certain relationships continue appearing in dreams, memories, or unexpected moments of reflection. The psyche is not simply replaying the past for nostalgia. Instead, it is trying to understand what the relationship meant for your personal development. Questions that were never answered, emotions that were never expressed, or possibilities that were never explored can leave a psychological imprint that takes time to integrate. Many people believe that time alone will make someone disappear from their mind. But Jung would suggest that time itself is not what resolves emotional experiences. What truly allows the mind to move forward is understanding. Once the psyche recognizes the meaning of the connection, what it revealed about you, your desires, or your emotional patterns, the need to revisit the memory gradually fades. Until that meaning becomes clear, the mind may keep returning to the person as if the story were still unfolding somewhere within the unconscious. It is less about holding on to them and more about completing the emotional chapter that the relationship began. And interestingly, even when the relationship itself is finished, the mind may continue recreating the connection in subtle ways. Because sometimes the memory of the person becomes a symbol that the psyche uses to explore deeper questions about your life and identity. Another surprising reason why someone stays in your mind for so long is that the psyche keeps returning to the relationship in order to reinterpret it. You may notice that your thoughts about that person change over time. At first, you may remember the emotional intensity of the connection. Later, you may begin reflecting on the conversations you had, the choices that were made, or the moments where things could have gone differently. This constant reinterpretation is not simply nostalgia. According to Carl Jung, the unconscious mind continuously reorganizes past experiences in order to extract meaning from them. Jung believed that memories are not fixed events stored in the mind like photographs. Instead, they are living psychological material that evolves as your understanding of yourself grows. Because of this, a relationship that once felt confusing may slowly begin revealing deeper insights about your life. You may realize that the connection appeared during a moment when you were searching for something within yourself. Perhaps the person reflected a desire for emotional connection, independence, validation, or personal growth that you were not fully aware of at the time. As your perspective changes, the memory of that person becomes a symbolic reference point for your own development. The psyche continues revisiting the relationship because it represents a chapter in your psychological journey. Each time you reflect on it, the mind extracts new understanding about who you were then, and who you are becoming now. Jung believed that certain relationships leave lasting impressions because they activate archetypal patterns within the psyche. The person becomes more than just someone you met. They become a symbol connected to transformation, longing, or self-discovery. In this way, the mind returns to the memory not because it cannot move forward, but because the experience still carries meaning that continues unfolding. And when this process reaches its final stage, a deeper realization often appears. The person you thought you could never forget may have been guiding you toward a truth about yourself that you had not yet fully recognized. At the deepest level, the reason someone remains in your mind may have very little to do with them anymore. Over time, the memory of that person becomes intertwined with a deeper realization about your own life. You may begin to understand that the connection was not simply about affection, timing, or circumstances. It was about something the relationship revealed within you. According to Carl Jung, certain encounters act as psychological turning points. Jung believed that some people enter our lives not only to share experiences with us, but to awaken parts of our identity that were still hidden or undeveloped. These encounters activate powerful unconscious patterns that push us toward deeper self-understanding. When this happens, the person becomes symbolically connected to your own transformation. Even if the relationship ended, the psychological process it started continues unfolding. The mind returns to the memory not because you are meant to remain attached to them forever, but because the experience still carries meaning related to who you are becoming. Many people eventually realize that the difficulty in forgetting someone is actually connected to an important question about themselves. What did that relationship reveal about your emotional needs? What part of yourself became visible during that connection? What truth about your life did the experience uncover? Jung believed that once the psyche fully understands the role that person played in your personal development, the emotional grip of the memory often begins to soften. The individual no longer appears in your thoughts with the same intensity because the unconscious has completed the psychological work it needed to do. In this way, the person you believed you could never forget may have been part of a much deeper process. They were not only someone you met in life, they were also a mirror reflecting aspects of yourself that were waiting to be discovered. And once that discovery becomes clear, the memory of the connection often transforms. It stops being a question you are trying to answer and becomes a chapter in the story of how you came to understand yourself more deeply.